Hello everyone, my name is Nikita and I am from the Bodhi Academy. In the previous video, we had started with the chapter Reproduction from 12th standard biology textbook, and we had seen what is asexual reproduction. In this video, I will be starting with the next concept, that is sexual reproduction. This video will be just an introduction on what is sexual reproduction. Now, while we were studying asexual reproduction, we had seen that asexual reproduction involves only one organism, and the offspring produced is identical. It is a clone of the parent. Okay, so asexual reproduction involves only one parent, and the offspring produced by this reproduction is the exact clone and copy of the parent. In sexual reproduction, the main important thing that we need to know is the process involves two organisms, two individuals. It involves two individuals, okay, and the offspring produced is different, okay. Now, how is it so? First of all, the two individuals can be different or it can be morphologically same. Okay. Now, as it involves two individuals means the male and the female. Now we have already studied about in our previous classes about the gametes produced by the male and the gametes produced by the female. Okay, so the gametes produced by the male, by the reproductive organ of the male, is the sperm, and the gametes produced by the female reproductive organ, the gamete is called the egg or the ova. Now, what happens in sexual reproduction? In sexual reproduction, first of all, for the sexual reproduction to occur, the male and the female organism has to come in close contact, close physical contact. Then there is a fusion of this sperm and this egg. They fuse together to form something called as the zygote. Okay. Further, the zygote forms the embryo, and after further stages, it leads to the formation of the offspring. Now, okay, so now sexual reproduction involves the male and the female. So the sperm and the ova and the genes, okay, the genetic material present in sperm and the ova will come together to form the zygote, the genetic material of the zygote. So it is obvious that the zygote will have the genes from both the parents, from the male and the female. Okay, so in this case, the new offspring which is formed will have the characteristics and the genes of both the male and the female. Okay, in this case, what will happen is that the offspring will not be identical to either of this. Okay, the offspring won't be identical either to the male or the female. It will have the characteristics of both the male and the female. Okay, unlike the asexual reproduction, wherein the offspring produced is exact copy of the parent. Okay, so here the main difference between sexual and asexual reproduction is that in asexual there's only one parent involved and the offspring produces the exact copy of the parent. Okay, wherein in the sexual reproduction, in this case there are two individuals involved and the offspring produced is not the exact copy. It has the characteristics of both the male and the female. Okay, so this is the definition of sexual reproduction. Now, for the sexual reproduction to occur, it is, first of all, it is a complex mechanism. Okay, it is not as simple as the mechanisms of the sexual reproduction like cell division or budding. This is the mechanism of the sexual reproduction is very complex, and it happens only in individuals which have morphologically and in diverse and structures of the body, and also the internal structure is very diverse and complex. It happens in those organisms only, in highly developed organisms. Okay, in some plants, mostly in the plants and in the animals. Now, for the sexual reproduction to occur, the body of the organism has to be developed, has to reach at that phase. Okay, that's the reason the lifespan of the sexually reproducing organism is divided into three phases. Okay, so I will just mention the phases first. The first phase is called as the juvenile phase. Okay, the second phase is called as the reproductive phase, and the third phase is called as the senescence. Now, what happens in the juvenile phase? Now, I have already mentioned that for the reproduction to occur, the body of the organism has to be reproductively active. Okay, it should be ready. So in this case, the period of growth, okay, the period of growth of the organism means the organism is getting ready for the reproductive act to occur. The period of growth is called as the juvenile phase. This is the period of growth. This is the phase of the organism wherein the organism is reaching the reproductive phase. The period of growth from the start of the organism to the point where it is becoming reproductively active. Okay, it is entering the reproductive phase, that is called as the juvenile phase. Means in this phase the organism is reproductively inactive. Okay, and once it reaches the reproductive phase, it becomes reproductively active. Means in this phase the organism can undergo the process of sexual reproduction. Okay, now after reproduction has taken place, the reproductive phase can again get deactivated, and that is the phase when the organism enters the senescence age. Now this senescence means it leads to the death of the organism. Okay, death of the organism. So the sexually reproducing organisms have three phases in their life. First is the juvenile phase, wherein the organism is getting ready to enter the reproductive phase and undergo the process of reproduction. The second is the reproductive phase, wherein the organism is reproductively active, and the third one is the senescence phase, wherein the reproductive activity of the organism gets deactivated and the organism enters the death phase. Okay, so in the plants, okay, this is in the animals. In the plants, the juvenile phase is called as the vegetative phase. And further it is reproductive, and then it is senescence stage. Okay, so the juvenile phase is called, in plant it is called as the vegetative phase. Now the reproductive phase of the organism of the plants, okay, it is mostly when the plant starts flowering. Okay, when the plant starts flowering, that becomes the reproductive phase of the organism. Now these flowering patterns of many of the plants are not common in all the plants. Okay, it is not the same in all the plants, and it is not, in some plants it is not fixed. Okay, now based upon their flowering or their reproductive phases, the plants are classified into something called as annual and biennial. Okay, yeah. So in the annual phase, the plant is flowering only once. Okay, the plant flowers only once, means it is reproductively active only once in a year. Okay, the flowering happens only once in a year. In the biennial phase, the flowering happens twice a year. Okay, and next we have something called as perennial. Okay, perennial species. In this case, the plant can flower many times or multiple times in the year. multiple times. So depending upon their flowering seasons, the plants are classified into annual, biennial and perennial. In annual, they flower only once in a year. In biennial, bi means two, so they flower twice a year. And in perennial species, they flower multiple times in a year. So now what will be their reproductive and juvenile or vegetative phases? The annual and the biennial, these two have the clear-cut distinction between the annual and the between the juvenile, the vegetative and the reproductive phases. Okay, there is clear-cut distinction. Means we know when it is their juvenile phase and when is their reproductive phase. But in case of perennial, it is not the case. They do not have clear-cut distinction between these phases. Okay. Now, so there are different flowers. For example, the bamboo flowers, the flowers of the bamboo plant, they flower only once in 100 to 150 years. In that time when they flower, they produce a large amount of flowers and then they die. Okay, so that is one example. Now, in case of animals, okay, in case of animals, what happens is that during their reproductive phase, in the reproductive phase of the animals, the animals are active. Means how is the activity? The activity is depending upon their hormones and their ducts. Okay, the accessory ducts, the hormones and their ducts. Means during this reproductive phase, the hormones and the ducts are active, reproductively active. Now so this activity is defined by some cycles in the reproductive phases. In the non-primate animals, okay, non-primate animals, these cycles are called as estrous cycles. Estrous cycle, and in the primates it is called as menstrual cycle. Okay, so during these cycles, the organism is reproductively active, and the activity is mostly the production of hormones and the activity of the accessory ducts. Now, this non-primate and primate come under placental mammals. Means what are placental mammals? The mammals which give birth to a child in the womb, in the uterus. Okay, it gives birth to its offspring in the uterus using the tissue called as placenta. Those are called as placental mammals. Now, in this case, the estrous cycle is seen in the non-primates, and in the primates we see the menstrual cycle. Now, based upon their reproductive phase, the primates or the non-primates, the placental mammals, some are reproductively active throughout the year. Okay, reproductive activity. Some of the placental mammals, they are reproductively active throughout the year. And some are active only during a particular season. So those which are reproductively active throughout the year are called as continuous breeders. And those which have a particular season for reproductive activity, they are called as seasonal breeders. Okay, so means they can breed. Continuous breeders can breed only in the entire year, during the entire year, and seasonal breeders can breed only in that particular season. Okay, so yeah. Now, based upon this, okay, based upon the events in the sexual reproduction. Now, what will sexual reproduction include? It will include the production of gametes, first of all, by both the male and the female. further will be the fusion, the fertilization, and further will be the events after fertilization. So depending upon the activities which happen in the entire reproduction process, the sexual reproduction is divided again into three main events. Okay, so events of sexual reproduction. So the first one is the formation of gametes. Formation of gametes. For this, we have the event which is called as pre-fertilization. Pre-fertilization event which occurs pre means before. It occurs before fertilization. Okay, means you need to get the gametes first, right? So the formation of gametes occurs before fertilization. This is called as the pre-fertilization event. Next we need is fusion of gametes. Fusion of gametes. This includes the fertilization. This is the fertilization events where the actual fertilization takes place. Okay, now whatever activities are there, now this will include the zygote formation also. Now further the development of the zygote. Okay, the development of zygote and the processes after that are called as post-fertilization event. Okay, so this includes the three main events of sexual reproduction. First is the pre-fertilization wherein the gametes are formed. Second is the fertilization event where the actual fusion of gametes take place to form the zygote. And further is the post-fertilization event wherein it includes all the events which occur after fertilization, means the development of the zygote and what the effect it has on the organism which produces the zygote, or with the organism which produces the offspring. Okay, the parent which produces the offspring. So this everything will come under the introduction of sexual reproduction. So to revise, first of all, sexual reproduction involves two individuals. It leads to the formation of the offspring which has the characteristics of both the male and the female, and there is production of gametes over here by both male and the female. It is a complex mechanism, so it needs proper development of the organism to undergo sexual reproduction. So it includes some phases. So the first phase is juvenile phase, which is the period of growth. It is called as the vegetative phase in the plants. Next, leading to it is the reproductive phase wherein the organism is reproductively active for sexual reproduction, and further is the senescence phase when the organism again becomes reproductively inactive in most of the cases. Okay, now the reproductive phase in plants, it is called as the flowering stage where the plant flowers. Now depending upon their flowering stages or the flowering pattern, the plants are divided into three types: annual, biennial and perennial. In the annual ones, the plant flowers only once in a year. In the biennial, it flowers twice a year, and in perennial it flowers multiple times. Okay, so the annual and biennial have clear cut distinction between these three, the vegetative, reproductive and the senescence stages, whereas the perennial do not have so. Further, leading to reproductive phases in animals, it includes the development of the hormones and the accessory ducts. Okay, now in placental mammals, the changes occurring during reproductive phases are called as estrous cycle in non-primate animals, and in primate animals it is called as menstrual cycle. Means they are reproductively active during that particular time, during their cycles. Now depending upon their reproductive activity, when it actually happens, they are continuous breeders and seasonal breeders. In continuous breeders, the organism is reproductively active throughout the year. It can breed throughout the year, whereas in seasonal breeders, it can breed only in that particular season. Okay, last we saw what are the main events of sexual reproduction, which is the pre-fertilization, fertilization, and the post-fertilization event. So this is the introduction to sexual reproduction. In the next videos, we will be in detail studying what is pre-fertilization events, what does it actually contain, further what is fertilization, and next what is post-fertilization event. So in the next video, I will be dealing with what is pre-fertilization event. Yes, so thank you for watching my video. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.